The girl moved through the colony like drifting smoke, slipping past doors that hissed open and shut, past neon signs and languages that pulsed across their surfaces like breathing skin. Vendors barked in alien tongues, mechanical drones zipped overhead carrying parcels wrapped in glowing mesh, and children in gravity boots bounded too high, smacking their heads on low beams before laughing it off. No one stopped her. No one looked too closely. Her steps made no sound, though the floor beneath was a grid of metal that usually clanged when struck. She padded along in silence, hands twitching sometimes with half-formed signs that hung in the air only for herself. It was not that they hated her, not openly. Hatred took energy. She was easier to dismiss than to despise. Who would want to bond with someone who could not answer? Who would waste precious hours on a creature with long ears that drooped when spoken to? Who blinked blankly when words flew past? Better to look away, to let her fade into background noise. She carried scraps of food from abandoned tables, always careful not to be caught. Once, she had tried to offer a smile to a shopkeeper, and he had turned his head so fast she thought his neck might snap. That was when she stopped trying. The human man spotted her first at the docking bay. He had been swearing at a stubborn panel that refused to calibrate, muttering insults at the console as though it had offended his family. She had lingered nearby, watching. His hair stuck out in several directions, like he'd lost an argument with static electricity. He banged the console with the flat of his hand. The screen flashed green for a moment, then blinked back to red. He groaned loudly. "You are mocking me," he said to the console. "I can feel it. I will not be mocked by a box of blinking lights." The girl tilted her head, ears twitching slightly. She signed a quick sequence, the equivalent of "maybe it is smarter than you." Of course, he didn't understand. He turned, caught her motion, and blinked. Instead of ignoring her, he grinned. "Don't suppose you know how to fix moody consoles?" he asked, waving vaguely. She stared, uncertain. He lifted his hands then, and in an exaggerated, clumsy fashion, tried to copy the shapes she had made. His fingers tangled, and instead of anything coherent, he ended up with something that looked like a bad dance move. Her shoulders shook, the closest she ever came to laughing aloud. He seized on it. "Ah, so you do understand mockery. Perfect. Teach me before this machine eats my last shred of dignity." For the first time, she hesitated, not because she feared rejection, but because she didn't know how to explain. She signed slowly, carefully, repeating herself. He squinted, mimicked, got it wrong, then shrugged and made a joke out of it. When his hand shapes twisted into something that looked like a rude gesture from another culture, a nearby alien gasped. He apologized dramatically, bowing so low he nearly knocked his head on the console. Her ears twitched again, and her lips curved upward. The console, ignored until then, beeped triumphantly and reset itself. The man stared at it, aghast. "Wait, did you do that? Did you fix it just by laughing at me?" He whirled back toward her, eyes wide. "You're a witch. Or an engineer. Same thing, really." She shrugged, signed quickly that the panel had needed a timed reset, but her hands flew too fast for him to follow. He nodded as though he understood anyway. "I knew it. Witch. Definitely." He extended a hand. "I'm Kale, resident human fool. What do I call you, mysterious console whisperer?" She looked at his hand, then up at his face. Tentatively, she placed her own hand in his, soft and light. With her other hand, she shaped her name in signs. He frowned, trying to follow. Then he attempted it back, fumbling terribly, until her long ears twitched again in amusement. "That bad, huh? All right. I'll practice. I'm very stubborn. Ask anyone. I once argued with a vending machine for 3 hours until it gave me my sandwich." She tilted her head. "I won," he added. The colony noise roared around them, ships docking with thunderous booms, voices clashing in a dozen dialects, drones whirring past with reckless speed. But within that circle of awkward hands and crooked smiles, something shifted. For the first time in her long wandering silence, someone wasn't turning away. Kale pointed at the console, then at her, then back at himself. "Partners? You save me from evil machines. I teach you the sacred art of sandwich warfare. Deal." Her fingers hesitated, then shaped a simple, small word deal. And though she had not spoken a sound, he swore he heard it anyway. Cale kept his promise. The very next day, instead of leaving her to drift through the colony unnoticed, he showed up with a battered tablet under one arm and a determined grin plastered across his face. He plopped down cross-legged on the cold metal floor of the service corridor, right where she usually sat out of sight. "Lesson 1, he announced, holding up the tablet. The screen lit up with stick figures, each frozen mid-gesture. "I found a dictionary. Well, technically I stole it from an engineering student's open feed. Don't tell anyone. Or do. I'm not famous enough to get in trouble anyway." She blinked at the glowing screen, then at him, her ears angled slightly forward, curious. "Now, you'll have to forgive my pronunciation," he said, flexing his fingers dramatically. "I was once told I couldn't even shuffle cards properly. But hey, how hard could this be? It's just talking without noise, right?" She signed the word practice, and he attempted to copy her. What came out looked more like potato. She raised an eyebrow. "Potato," he guessed. "Was that potato?" "No." "Okay, fine, I'm terrible. But I'm terrible with style." Her shoulders shook again. He pretended to write an official note in the air. "Entry 1. Alien girl laughs at human man's incredible wit. Progress achieved." In the days that followed, he trailed after her through the colony's underbelly, always carrying the tablet, like a sacred text. When she walked the market, scavenging for discarded fruit, he tagged along, practicing signs until vendors threatened to ban him for knocking things over with his wild gestures. Once he knocked an entire stack of glowing melons to the ground. They rolled in every direction, humming faintly as they went. "Not my fault," he said, chasing after them. "They're alive. You didn't tell me melons could migrate." She scooped one up before it rolled down a drain, handing it back with the slightest shake of her head. "What? Don't look at me like that. This is sabotage. The melons are plotting against me." Still, he didn't stop practicing. Every time she signed, he tried to mirror her, sometimes with surprising accuracy, other times with catastrophic results. He once meant to say friend, but his fingers slipped, and she nearly doubled over at the accidental phrase for smelly reactor. "Okay, that one I meant," he said quickly, pointing at himself. "Self-description. Very accurate. You'd know if you ever visited my bunk." He was relentless, and though she never made a sound, her laughter showed in her twitching ears, in the quick sparkle of her eyes, in the way she began to linger instead of slipping away. But the colony wasn't blind. People noticed. Two beings walking side by side, one signing patiently, the other fumbling like a man trying to juggle knives blindfolded. Whispers floated through the markets, down the neon corridors, past the docking bays. "Strange pair," someone muttered. "She's deaf, isn't she?" "Why bother?" another said. Cale pretended not to hear, but she did. Her ears caught every shift in tone, even if the words themselves fell away. Her steps slowed. She folded her hands tightly, withdrawing. He noticed instantly. "Don't listen," he signed clumsily. His fingers tangled, but she got the meaning. "They don't know anything. People who talk too much never do." She hesitated, then signed carefully. "You don't mind?" He tilted his head. "Mind? I've had worse insults thrown at me by vending machines. Besides, you're teaching me to talk with my hands. Do you know how useful that is? I can insult people silently now." Revolutionary. That earned the smallest curl of her lips. To prove his point, he marched boldly through the crowded corridor, gesturing wildly. To everyone else, he looked like he was conducting an invisible orchestra while falling down a staircase. To her, he was spelling out fools everywhere. "See," he said proudly, when someone gave him a strange look. "They think I'm insane," which is perfect camouflage. It was ridiculous, but it worked. She relaxed again, and by the time they reached the outer observation deck, her ears had smoothed back into their calm posture. The view stretched wide beyond the glass, endless black, dotted with drifting ships like fireflies caught in amber. He leaned against the rail, hands busy. "Tell me about your world." He signed slowly. Her gaze lingered on the stars. Then her fingers began to move, hesitant at first, then more fluid. She described forests where the air shimmered with bioluminescent vines, rivers that carried soundless currents, skies streaked with green auroras that never dimmed. Her people spoke with their hands under those lights, conversations rippling through the air like dances. She told him she had been the only one born without a voice or the ability to hear the harmonies of their ceremonies. He didn't flinch. He signed carefully back. Asterisk, that sounds beautiful. And lonely. But mostly beautiful, asterisk. She stared at him, almost disbelieving, then signed something slow, deliberate. Do you really understand me? His grin came soft, steady. Of course. You're telling me about glowing trees and magical rivers. I get it. Though I admit I'm jealous. My world had nothing but mud and angry birds that stole sandwiches. Her ears twitched at that, though her hand said nothing. He tapped the railing, glancing sideways at her. I'll show you something too, one day. Maybe not glowing vines, but I can make a mean cup of human coffee. That counts for something, right? She signed a single word, maybe. And for him, that was better than any yes. Cale had never been accused of subtlety, and his new habit of shadowing the alien girl made it impossible to miss them. He didn't seem to care. In fact, he leaned into the attention, waving cheerfully at anyone who glared. When an insectoid vendor muttered under its mandibles about humans wasting time on broken creatures, Cale signed "Thank you for your support" with such dramatic flourish that the vendor nearly dropped its basket of sizzling larvae. The girl tried to tug him away, but he only grinned wider. "If they stare, we give them a show," he said, then proceeded to bow like a stage actor while she covered her face with her hands. Despite the stares, their lessons grew steadier. Cale's tablet filled with doodles of stick figures, half-complete gestures, and notes that made sense only to him. One page read, 2 fingers equals friend? Or sandwich. Check later. Another said, don't waggle wrist too much, means farting reactor. She scolded him when he signed wrong, though her twitching ears betrayed her amusement. One evening, as they sat in the maintenance bay, Cale tapped the console with a wrench. Lesson break. Time for important human knowledge. He produced a small tin from his jacket and popped it open. Inside were dull brown cubes. She eyed them suspiciously. Chocolate, he explained. Sacred food. Currency. Bribery tool. Also good for depression and convincing children to brush their teeth. She lifted one delicately, sniffed it, then nibbled. Her ears flicked straight up in surprise. See, humanity's greatest invention. Forget faster-than-light drives. It's cocoa beans. We'll win galactic peace by weaponizing dessert. She signed slowly, trying out the words. Asterisk sweet. Strange. Good asterisk. Exactly. My entire personality summed up. It was silly, but those moments made the silence between them less heavy. He joked. She corrected his fumbling hands, and little by little, they wove something fragile yet strong. But the colony itself began to fray. The first signs were small, docking schedules scrambled, lights flickering at odd intervals, cargo drones delivering crates to the wrong decks. At first, everyone blamed Cale. After all, he had a reputation for breaking more machines than he fixed. Not me this time, he protested, as a lift door closed on his foot. I swear, I only insulted it a little. She signed patterns, pointing at the blinking lights above the lift. Her fingers moved faster than he could follow, sketching invisible shapes in the air. He frowned. Patterns? Like intentional. She nodded, ears tense. They watched together as the lights pulsed again, long, short, long. Cale's eyes widened. Wait a second. That's code. Someone's sending signals through the system. She gestured quickly, her hands a blur. He caught only half, not random speaking. He grabbed his tablet, trying to sketch what she showed. You're saying the colony systems aren't glitching. They're talking? And you can read it? She signed firmly, yes. Cale whistled. Well, that explains why my toaster started blinking at me this morning. I thought it was just angry about the bread. She rolled her eyes. Word spread fast once Cale blabbed in the cantina. Soon, officers were cornering him, demanding explanations he couldn't give without her. They refused to address her directly, though. talking over her as though she were invisible. Cale crossed his arms. You want answers? Then you listen to her. She's the one who understands. They hesitated, unused to the idea. But when another system failure nearly vented half the docking bay into space, desperation overruled prejudice. The next time alarm screamed, she was pulled into the control center, Cale right beside her, still grinning like this was all part of his plan. The room bristled with tension, officers barking orders, technicians cursing at stubborn consoles, displays flashing warnings in angry red. The girl stepped forward silently, her hands moving with urgent speed. Cale translated as best he could. She says the signal isn't random, it's a message. Someone's trying to get through. Or someone's trying to get in. The technicians froze. She leaned over a panel, her fingers tracing the blinking lights, her long ears twitching as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then she signed sharply, dangerous. Cale swallowed. Yeah, she says it's bad. Like really bad. The kind of bad where I'd usually make a joke. But honestly, I'm scared. Silence fell, broken only by the alarms. Finally, one officer asked, What do we do? Cale looked at her. She signed quickly, then pointed to the system's map. She says we need to shut down sections in sequence, like a lock, he explained. If we don't, whatever's sending this signal might break through. The officers glanced at each other, unsure. But the alternative was worse. Cale smirked. Well, folks, looks like you've got two choices. Trust the girl you've been ignoring, or get eaten by whatever's knocking on the door. Personally, I vote for trust. No one laughed, but no one argued either. And so, for the first time, the silent girl stood at the center of the storm, her hands shaping orders that Cale threw into words, her silence louder than every alarm in the colony. The control room smelled of overheating circuits and stress. Technicians scrambled. Officers barked orders that clashed in midair. And through it all she stood at the central console, her hands slicing patterns no one else could follow. Cale hovered at her side, translating as fast as his clumsy fingers and quick tongue allowed. She says don't shut down Section 3 yet, or the fail-safes will blow. Yeah, you heard me, blow. As in boom. As in let's all learn how to breathe vacuum the hard way. The officers froze, then redirected commands. Screens flickered as sections of the colony dimmed one by one. She moved with speed and precision, her ears twitching every time the lights pulsed in coded rhythm. To Cale, it looked like she was conducting an orchestra no one else could hear. He leaned closer. I swear, if this turns out to be some cosmic prank call, I'm going to be very upset. She shot him a quick sign that meant focus. I am focused, he whispered back. I'm focusing on how doomed we'll be if you stop moving those hands. Despite the chaos, a technician whispered in awe. She really understands it. Cale grinned. Told you. She's fluent in blinking light. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to master hello. The signal fought back. Systems resisted her lockout sequence. Lights flashing more aggressively. Drones in the bay going haywire. One small loader drone began spinning in circles, flailing its manipulator arms like a drunken dancer. Cale pointed. See, even the robots are panicking. Her hands flew faster. Cale translated with less confidence. She says overload firewall, something about breaking the chain. She glared at him. Okay, I missed half. Sorry. You're too fast. I need subtitles. He tried again, slower. She says if we break the signal's rhythm, it loses its grip. An officer barked, how? Cale spread his hands helplessly. I don't know. I'm just the mouth here. She's the brain. The girl signed sharply, noise. Cale blinked. Noise? You want us to, you want to jam it. Flood the systems with nonsense. She nodded firmly. Finally, a plan I'm good at. I've been making nonsense my whole life. The technicians scrambled to comply, typing frantically. Soon the colony's comms filled with random static, scrambled signals, and, in one unfortunate test, Cale's personal playlist of out-of-tune guitar solos. The alien girl winced. What? Don't look at me like that. Art is subjective, he said. The lights pulsed erratically, the signal faltering under the barrage. The girl pressed her palms flat to the console, eyes closed, as if feeling the vibrations in her bones. Then her hands moved in a final, decisive arc. She signed one word, locked. Cale translated with dramatic flair. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is game over. The alarms quieted. Consoles steadied. The loader drone wobbled to a stop and collapsed in exhaustion. The control room fell into stunned silence. An officer finally cleared his throat. She just saved the colony. Cale clapped his hands. Yes, she did. You're welcome. Every head swiveled toward him. What? I translated. Do you know how hard it is to keep up with her hands? My wrists are going to need therapy. The girl smacked his arm lightly. He grinned sheepishly and corrected himself. All right, fine. She saved the colony. I was just her loudspeaker. For the first time, the officers looked directly at her. Not through her, not past her, but at her. Their stiff posture softened. One even attempted a crude hand gesture, something vaguely resembling thank you, though it came out more like banana. Her ears twitched. She signed close enough. Cale burst out laughing. You're officially teaching everyone now. Hope you're ready to open a school. Later, when the room emptied and the crisis was declared contained but under investigation, Cale and the girl lingered by the viewport. The stars shone cold and endless, but closer now, somehow less indifferent. He signed slowly, careful not to botch it. You were amazing. Her response was simple, we were. He chuckled. Generous. But I know who did the heavy lifting. I just cracked jokes and annoyed people until they listened. She shaped a word that meant important. He blinked, caught off guard. Important? Me. She nodded firmly. Cale scratched the back of his neck, suddenly uncharacteristically quiet. Then he muttered, Well, if I'm important, you're unstoppable. She tilted her head, amused. Seriously, you locked out a galaxy-sized hacker with nothing but your hands. Next time, remind me never to get on your bad side. I don't want my bunk exploding in alphabetical order. Her ears flicked as if she were laughing silently. For once, no one whispered against them as they left the control room. The colony corridors were just as noisy and neon as ever, but the people who passed them no longer looked away. Some even paused, curious, as she signed to Cale, and he answered with his crooked hands. It wasn't acceptance yet, not fully, but it was a beginning. Cale was never one for ceremony, but the colony insisted on one anyway. They dragged out banners, polished the docking bay until it gleamed, and even forced a band of mismatched musicians to play something that sounded like a collision between bagpipes and malfunctioning sirens. Cale leaned over to her and whispered, If this is the victory fanfare, maybe we should have let the signal win. Her long ears twitched as if suppressing laughter. The governor of the colony gave a booming speech, praising unity, bravery, and, most shockingly, the extraordinary efforts of our silent guardian. For once, no one looked away when their eyes fell on her. Instead, hands moved hesitantly in the crowd, copying the clumsy signs she had taught them. Most were wrong, twisted into nonsense, but she understood the attempt. She signed back, simple and clear. Thank you. Cale jabbed an elbow into her side. You realize you're famous now, right? I'll have to start charging people to stand next to you. Step right up. Get your picture with the hero. Only 3 credits. She signed ridiculous. Yes, but profitable. The ceremony ended with the band mercifully sputtering into silence, and the crowd dispersed with something new hanging in the air, respect. She walked more slowly now, not from hesitation, but because people greeted her, waved, even tried their best to sign hello. Cale kept pace beside her, still translating when needed, though more often than not she didn't need him anymore. He noticed it too. Looks like I'm getting out of a job, he said. You'll be talking to everyone soon. Won't even need me tagging along like some noisy translator. She signed carefully. Need you anyway. Cale blinked, then scratched the back of his head. Well, I guess I can handle being needed. Haven't had much practice at it, but I'll give it a shot. The crisis faded into memory, but the colony was different now. Hand signs became common in the markets, in the corridors, even among children who used them to gossip silently behind adults' backs. She was no longer invisible. She was a teacher, a translator of patterns no one else could see, the girl who had turned silence into strength. Cale adapted too. He spent less time cursing at machines and more time fixing them, though he still claimed appliances had personal vendettas against him. One morning, when a dispenser refused to give him coffee, he yelled, "She likes you better. You ask it." She signed something fast that made the dispenser hiss and spit out a perfect cup. Cale gaped. "You're not just teaching the colony. You're teaching the machines now. We're doomed." Together, they carved a new rhythm in the colony's pulse. Their lessons grew into gatherings, gatherings into classes, and soon entire decks had boards flashing basic sign tutorials. Cale insisted on teaching idioms too, though his versions were absurd. "Tell them about kick the bucket," he urged once. When she signed it, the students laughed so hard the lesson dissolved for the day. But it wasn't only language. The strange signal never returned, though fragments still lingered in the systems, like faint echoes. Sometimes, late at night, she would trace the patterns in the dark, her ears twitching as if hearing something far away. Cale always noticed. "You're not alone anymore," he said once, when she hesitated over a flickering console. "If it comes back, we'll face it together. No more walking in shadows." She signed slowly, "Not alone." The word stayed with him. He thought of the first day, when she wandered past him like a ghost, unseen and unwanted. Now she was the one drawing crowds, while he trailed after her like a loud footnote. And he didn't mind. Not at all. Weeks later, when the governor offered her an official position as liaison to the control systems, she accepted with steady hands. Cale clapped so hard he nearly toppled off his chair. "Congratulations. You've gone from outcast to boss of blinking lights. Next stop, Universal President." She flicked his ear. "Stop talking." Impossible. Her ears twitched, but her hand signed something gentler. "Stay with me." Cale froze, then smiled in that lopsided, stubborn way of his. "You couldn't get rid of me if you tried. Besides, who else is going to argue with vending machines on your behalf?" So the colony continued, louder than ever, but also quieter in new ways. Hands speaking where voices once failed, silence carrying meaning instead of emptiness. The girl who had walked alone now walked at the center, and the man who refused to leave her side walked with her, still fumbling, still joking, still translating badly, but always trying. And when she signed, one quiet night beneath the observation deck's endless stars, "Do you really understand me?" he didn't answer with words. He just smiled, wide and sure, because she already knew.